Hey everyone, welcome back to Major Arcana Month with me, the Mermaid Mystic. We are continuing our journey through the Major Arcana today. Our next card is the Lovers, a card I'm really excited to talk about because it's so rich and so interesting, but I would argue possibly one of the most misunderstood cards of the Major Arcana. Bold statement, I know, but we're going to dive into it. So this is a tutorial video. I recommend taking notes if you are learning the tarot. Pause the video to grab your note-taking material now because I'm going to dive right into this card. So firstly, as always, we're going to explore the imagery. So we see that there's two figures and they are naked. We have who might be considered an Eve figure, as in from Adam and Eve. And then, yeah, we got Adam there. We have a fruit tree with a serpent coiled around it. We have a tree on fire. We have what looks like an angel above them and the sun shining down on them. What does it all mean? Firstly, nudity in the tarot often represents vulnerability and authenticity. So whenever you see that, that's going to be an important part of that card's message. So here we know there's something to do with vulnerability and authenticity. There are no masks. There's no barrier between us and the world. So it's very open. With this Eve figure, we've got a tree behind them. So this could be the tree of knowledge. So this idea that with the energies of Eve come knowledge. Now, if we are going to continue with that, then we could see this as a possible reference to Sophia. So this idea of divine wisdom. The serpent then may in fact be the serpent, yes, who tempts Eve, but there's a lot more there with the serpent. Serpents have long been associated with the wisdom of the divine feminine. As people with periods shed their lining every month, which was seen as something really powerful, period blood has often been seen as a very powerful substance. Serpents shed their skin. So there's a link between them in a number of different practices. If we're going to stick with divine wisdom, this gets really cool. This serpent may be the python. Python is Gaia's son. So Gaia is in the Greek goddess of Mother Earth. So the python is her son. The python used to protect the Oracle of Delphi, which was that ancient Greek site where people would travel to hear prophecies from the priestesses there. Priestesses being priestesses of Pythia, and Pythia coming from python, so the serpent, so these serpent priestesses. Okay, so now what we're seeing here is not just knowledge, but divine wisdom and wisdom that comes from whatever you want to call it, the spirits, the gods, the universe, right? Pythia, the priestesses of Pythia are channeling this information and sharing it with the world. So when we have the serpent, we have the tree of knowledge, we have this figure of Eve. I would take this, and this is coming from my own studies and my own experiences reading the cards, that this could suggest more like Sophia, divine wisdom. Now, this gets even more interesting when we look at where their gazes are. So we can see that Eve is gazing up at this angel, which then would suggest that the receptive part of ourselves is receiving divine guidance, divine wisdom. Then we see this Adam figure is looking to the Eve figure. The Adam figure, and we see this burning tree behind them, represents the part of ourselves that wants to make plans and strategize, read studies, logic, intellectualism, all of that. Because as we've already seen through the tarot, we have cards that represent that over and over again. We've had the High Priestess and the Empress for that receptivity, for that sensuality, for that connection to the other world. And we've had the Emperor who is going to plan, who is going to strategize, who's going to put their feelings aside, who's going to look to the future, right? This again reminds us of these energies that are in the tarot, but here they are coming together. This is not about different people. This isn't even about different genders. So we're going to really remove our super modern lens from this because tarot is an ancient tool. If not ancient, it's an older tool that's based off of older traditions. So we have to broaden our worldview. We have to expand the lens through which we're viewing tarot. So this is not just about like smoochy smoochy. These are about parts of ourselves. So we all have the part of ourselves that looks to the divine, that is receptive, that senses the wisdom of the earth, right? The sensuality. We all have that and need that. We also all have with this fire, this sort of desire to grow, to change, to transform. We all have that as well, and we need it. And we also need the part of us that is logical, that wants to go from point A to point B, that wants to be more linear. You could kind of think about this energy as more of a web seeing how it's all connected, and this energy as then wanting to make a plan. You'll notice that neither is above or below the other. This is another really important thing in tarot you're going to look for. You're going to look for the placement of people. Remember, in the last video, we had the Hierophant. The Hierophant was sat higher than their students, and this was not to imply that the Hierophant is more valued or more important, rather that they have the authority to speak and teach. So people are looking up to this figure because this figure has the life experience and the education to be sharing whatever it is that they are sharing, okay? Here they are even. The figure above them is the angel. And again, this is going to depend on your belief system. I try not to be too prescriptive here because so much of spirituality is still a mystery, right? We don't know. We've got so many rich traditions to learn from, and what really works for one person might really work for another person. So I'm always doing my best not to be too prescriptive here with beliefs, because I think a diversity of beliefs is possible in tarot and enriches us as human beings. So we're going to pick whatever this is. If this is God, if this is Great Spirit, if this is the universe. So, think of whatever you would view as spirit. And this is what's watching over us. This is what's uniting us. So the Lovers, where we get really mixed up, I find often, is we assume this has to do with literally the lovers. We assume this has to do with a romantic relationship. And while this is possible, what's really happening with the Lovers is wholeness. This is where we are honoring all parts of ourselves. We are opening ourselves up to our dreaming, to our spiritual guidance. We are remembering that we are, in fact, spiritual beings having a human experience. Excuse the commonly used phrase, but it works well with this card. And that we all need to embrace all parts of ourselves. We cannot love ourselves in slices. This also is a card that I find speaks to connection and can actually be really helpful with notions of loneliness. When you realize that you are a part of the Great Spirit that is everything, you're not separate from it, you're a part of it, then all of a sudden the world starts to look pretty differently. You start to feel differently about the trees that you walk past and your fellow human beings and the waters. You start to look at the stars differently. You start to realize that we are not only sharing this planet, we're all connected through it, and the galaxy. So this card has some pretty big messages and concepts to explore. This is one of the great gifts of tarot. It's not just pulling cards and reading and asking questions, though of course we know that's very rich. It is also what the cards themselves are all teaching us. Through the study of tarot, you are absolutely expanding your mind, your soul, opening your heart, enriching all of it, and going further on your spiritual journey. So when you pull the Lovers, now, the other part with this card that's really important is it has to do with choices, right? We got this idea of 2, 1, and 2. So choices, how are they made? Once again, the Lovers reminds us that choices are made from a place of love. We are going to see the card, the Devil, and the Devil is the 15th card in the Major Arcana, okay? And this is 6. The Devil also looks very similar to the Lovers. I'm going to show this when we talk about the Devil. I don't want to I don't want to jump too much, but they actually look very similar. And essentially, if you were to boil it down and get to the root of them, these are choices made from a place of love, and the Devil are choices made from a place of fear. Now, there's much more to both cards than that, but if you can remember that distinction, you'll start to get kind of to the roots and the base, the foundation of these meanings. So when the Lover shows up, we are making choices. Choices are asked to be made, and we need to make them from a place of love and wholeness. So this could indicate that you are approaching this, you're entering a state of wholeness, or you need to examine which part of this needs some love and nurturing. But when this card shows up, we want to trust our intuition. We also want to balance it with some logic, but really we're making choices from a place of love. Lastly, I could go on about this card forever. The other thing with the Lovers is a sense of passion and being turned on, but allow me to expand upon this notion of being turned on. So again, with the nudity, with the fire, with this earthy sensuality, with this kind of like peaked mountain, there is absolutely this idea that this could be erotic or sensual, but love is a key component in this card, so it would be unlikely for something just sort of like a hookup. But this reminds us that actually wisdom can be a turn on. Wisdom can be erotic. When you're learning about different ideas, when you're learning about divine wisdom, it can fill you up with light. You can feel like all of your cells are activated. If you like to learn, you have probably experienced this at some point. If you've been learning something and you just get so excited, right? So this isn't necessarily sexual, but is this the sense of like passion and feeling turned on by what it is you are learning? Think about senses being turned on. You feel very alive. So I see this card really rarely for romantic relationships. These concepts are so big. They have so much more to do with our life experience. That doesn't mean it can't. This is where we start to come into the arena of the fact that like people have different tarot languages. There's this really cool concept in translation studies called an idiolect. An idiolect, if you've heard of a dialect, that's how a language is spoken based on geography. So like I speak English from like Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. It's going to be different from someone in like Dublin, Ireland, right? So an idiolect though is how an individual person, idio, speaks. So this is going to be your own, just based on your own life. And everyone I find that idiolect starts to translate to the tarot, because we all have different experiences, we all have different belief systems, we translate the images differently. And tarot is the art of studying the cards, but also tapping into your Sophia, your divine wisdom, your spiritual connection, your spiritual translation. So from my lens, through my experience, I have been reading tarot for now about 17 years, and I've seen the lovers come up for romantic relationships like probably less than one hand. Two of Cups is what I will see come up for romantic relationships. Now, in your tarot practice, if you find that this is different, please, by all means, always go with what's right for you. But I do find that people will get disappointed because they'll pull the lovers, assume it's about something romantic, that romantic situation doesn't pan out. So what you'd want to explore here is, did that situation with that person teach you to love yourself more? Did you make choices from a place of love or not? Did somehow a sense of wholeness come to you through that? These are more of the questions to ask. So when this card comes up, if you can just remember, this is about authenticity, vulnerability, love, but it could also be passion for life, a sense of wholeness by honoring all parts of ourselves and connecting to spirit, and then making choices from this place. That's going to have you on the right track. Okay, my friends, longer video today. Thank you for your patience. I hope you enjoyed this. Stay tuned for the next video, the Chariot.